Dear ladies and gentlemen, good day. My name is Dr. Macarena Rau Vargas, and I am the International President of the International CPTED Association, ICA. I am very glad to be here with you today. I salute and thank the DPT German Congress and the chapter, the ICA chapter in Germany, and all the leaders and teams there. For inviting me to represent ICA in this so relevant Congress. I will present today something related with ICA, but also from a very unique perspective that I have been working with the past 3 years, and has to do with urban safety through women leadership. Some of you may know and others don't know about the ICA. ICA is an NGO that is 26 years since its foundation in Alberta, Canada. And it is a global NGO that is present in more than 50 countries with different chapters all around the world, and that is expanding and growing under the ICA umbrella initiative. The ICA umbrella initiative was approved by the ICA board in the year 2020 and describes how different groups of CPTED practitioners can join the ICA with an MOU format or affiliation letter in different parts of the world. The ICA, International CPTED Association, the global institution that I lead, has different levels of organization. We have the global level that we call the CPTED office or CPTED headquarters. Then we have the regional levels. Some regions are more organized than others. Europe is very well organized, for example. You have there Paul van Sommeren, that I understand also will be present in the Congress. I am based in Latin America, and we have different chapters here in Mexico, in Chile, that work together. And we are moving towards to expand to new regions of the world. And also we have different ICA chapters in different nations and countries that also develops very interesting CPTED initiatives and agendas. They are working also well together. CPTED is the acronym for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, a methodology that was founded by Sir Roy Jeffrey in 1972. And since its foundation, it has grown, evolved, and expanded in 3 generations. First generation CPTED since the 60s focused on the crime opportunities within the physical environment. Second generation CPTED since 1997 focused on crime motivation within the social environment. And third generation CPTED since 2019 focused on holistic approaches to reinforce neighborhood liability through environmental, social, health, and economic sustainability. CPTED also has an ISO CPTED standard 22341 that was launched in 2021 due to the big amount of scientific evidence that is coming from different researchers all around the world. Here, just as a quick example, this is longitudinal research that I did with Dr. Tim Pascoe from UK in Patagonia, Chile, in the south of Chile. And we developed an CPTED impact evaluation model with a very interesting project of social housing. We spent 3 years working with these longitudinal studies, and we could, for example, measure with this impact evaluation model how crime affects the families in the settlement. And we saw and we measure very interesting decreases of crime and perception of fear regarding crime. Also, we could measure the increase of level among neighbors. You can see very interesting changes. But the main focus of this lecture is to talk about women leadership in urban safety. And I want to describe an interesting project that we developed with the CPTED Region Corporation Team ICA chapter together with UN Habitat Mexico. And the task was to develop a strategy, accepted strategy for the state of Zacatecas in Mexico for women. And the main objective was to deter and to help to reduce the homicide against women. So the first task was to gather information, and unfortunately the rate of homicide against women was increasing, and also it was very connected with narco traffic and narco crime corruption among different public institutions. So the first strategy was to increase the training abilities and to transfer accepted abilities to public functionaries. And with online system, we start teaching them with a CAP accredited online course to 19 functionaries of the prevention state department in the state government of Zacatecas. And then we choose 3 boroughs. The first borough was Guadalupe, then Orito, and then Plan de Ayala, to work with different women groups there and to design interventions, accepted interventions to reduce the opportunity of crime and very specifically to reduce the opportunity of homicide against women. As you can see in the pictures, and you may know, CPTED has a project cycle with 4 phases: diagnosis, design, implementation, and evaluation, as the CPTED white paper states, and also the ISO CPTED standard. And we started with the diagnosis phase in a very participatory way. We did cloud of dreams with children to get their perception of safety in the environment. We did some interviews with women, and we did also an environmental assessment looking at lighting, for example, pedestrian routes in the different settlements. Then with those teams, we analyze all the facts and the information from the CPTED diagnosis stages, and we start proposing different designs and interventions. And something that we discovered that was very relevant for the perception of safety of women was that they need to feel that other women are also together with those women in the public spaces. So it was very relevant, for example, the design of murals from different women seeing each other, women that see other women. This was something very relevant. And also to use colors and themes and topics that for women were very relevant, like proper food, for example, and very interesting native colors that for those women were relevant. Also, the most of those women were mothers, and also they needed to work, but for them was super relevant, for example, to connect these pedestrian safe routes, women pedestrian safe routes, with some settlements of playgrounds where their children could play. Also, for the women in El Orito was super relevant to have a safe route to cross a street without a car accident. This was also very relevant. And as you can see here, it was also for women in Zacatecas, super relevant to combine those solutions with these very relevant murals and with these relevant colors, with proper lighting and with benches for seat and some trees. Those were very, very relevant initiatives that we developed in that moment. And then they start looking for fundraising to implement that different strategies. Also, another very relevant project that I wanted to explain today was and is still working, the CPTED master plan in Puente Alto in the Andes del Sur Villa. Puente Alto is a very vulnerable borough in the metropolitan area of Santiago, the capital of Chile, where I live. And the Puente Alto municipality has different settlements and villas, populations, with environmental vulnerabilities, but also much drug trafficking, drug consume, alcohol consume. And the mayor, after the pandemic crisis in 2021, asked the CPTED region team to intervene this villa, Andes del Sur, because it was constituted mostly by elderly people. And these elderly people, and mostly women, elderly women, feel very, very isolated after the pandemic crisis. So we started the CPTED cycle with an environmental assessment and also doing the Cloud of Dream workshop. With the Cloud of Dream, you can see it was very interesting. We performed that workshop with children, but also with elderlies. And we asked them to dream their villa, and they produced these nice drawings with much subconscious and qualitative information that for our CPTED practice is very relevant. Always when we deal with a CPTED diagnosis, we combine qualitative information like this from these drawings and also quantitative information. And we gather them, we combine, and we analyze them together to get the final socio-environmental picture of the problem, of the crime problem and environmental problem that we need to solve. And we start the analysis of all these drawings, and we discover, for example, some very relevant problems. They were dealing with mourning due to the pandemic COVID crisis. Many elderly died, robbery, unsafety, fear of crime, urban neighborhood organization. That was very bad. So we start developing with them in a participatory way a CPTED master plan for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. We are now in the 3rd year and starting the 3rd year of the CPTED master plan. And we combine different techniques to reduce their perception of fear, their perception of vulnerability, and also to treat the lack of mental health due to the pandemic COVID crisis. And as you can see, we define some trust work together to start working again, for example, replacing some lighting in very relevant public spaces, put some cameras in very key corners, but also to start working art. And art is always very relevant for CPTED 3rd generation. And for example, we pick up with them this wall that was full graffiti and vandalized. And we define with the neighborhood and mainly with the elderly women, led by Carolina Cancino, that is the president of the neighborhood association, that is an elderly woman that is super strong with much power and leadership. The definition of the history of them in this villa, and then define the design of this beautiful mosaic. So with the Department of Culture in the municipality of Puente Alto, we start teaching them, the elderly women, how to build mosaics. We started with little mosaics, and they start training how to describe the history of the community in the Villa Andes del Sur, and then with the help of the team of Puente Alto and the Department of Culture, we trained them how to build that was in a little size to a big size in an urban scale size. It was so beautiful, the process. It took 1 year, 2022 year. And here you can see we had the launch of the mural with the mayor of Puente Alto, and the women that lead this process, the urban safety process from a CPTED perspective, they were super, super happy. And then we apply again a Cloud of Dream workshop, and the level of mental health was increases very much. Also, I want to show you another project that we developed in the year 2022 also, in the metropolitan region with the governor of Santiago and the CPTED region team regarding to bus transport stations, very big one. And we work in one very big metro and bus transport station that we call Cisterna in Chile. And the problem, the environmental crime problem here was that we can find here many prostitution, also drug trafficking, robberies, rapes also, among other crimes. So we start doing the environmental and urban analysis, and we discovered that the Cisterna station was in a very, very bad urban condition. It was a very contradictory because it should be a station that connects different pedestrian routes and flows and communities, but the design was totally the opposite. The design was like a backyard design. It was totally closed, without visual field, without all the CPTED principles that we need to apply for the CPTED ADM to be positive in an environment: natural surveillance, natural access control, maintenance, territorial enforcement, and citizens' participatory process. So it was a very vulnerable environment, and especially and mainly for women. We also had in this environment many women coming from migrants populations, from Peru, from Ecuador, from Colombia, and they felt very, very abandoned by the authority and very isolated, and also with a high risk factor of rape. So we start developing with the CPTED region team different perception maps. You can see here, we define some perception maps and fear perception maps with audits that we perform on the streets to these women. And you can see how it changed, and it became with a higher risk. For example, here you can see this map of the frequency of assaults against women, and here how women feel unfear, how women feel fear of crime, the possibility to be a victim of crime here in red. And the red area is very near the Cisterna station. So finally, also we analyze some data of how these women feel fear about being possible victims of crime. And then we start analyzing how we can change the environment to make those women to feel safer. And we start proposing changes, big changes for them to become and to develop safe routes for women. This is a work in progress, so I hope to publish the results very soon in the ICA newsletter and ICA journal that will come very soon out of the Committee of Theoretical CPTED Committee. And as closing remarks, CPTED as methodology has proven to be scientifically based, with global evidence of how it supports the reduction of crime, violence, and the perception of insecurity when it is applied correctly. And it is supported by the ISO CPTED standard also, 22341, and it has different tools that allows us to understand in a very deep sense how women feel in public space and in some residential also environments that are super, super relevant, these tools like the Cloud of Dreams, environmental assessment, among others. Also, CPTED is constantly evolving from a first, second to third generation. This is something that we value very, very much. Also, ICA is the great global umbrella of CPTED with global certification programs all around the world. And you can see those programs in the CPTED.net webpage, the CAP program and the ECCP. And also on the ICA webpage, you will find the CAP accredited CPTED courses in this link that we suggest for all the market and the different regions of the world, because they are reviewed, they are accredited, and they have update information. And also in my personal interesting of researcher to how to understand the relation between how we design environment and how women feel safer, CPTED has different tools and allows us to go deeper into the understanding of the connection between those variables. So thank you so much for your attention, and I will be glad to receive your questions. You can write me to this mail, president.cpted.net, and I will be happy to respond to you, or you can follow also you can follow me in my social media network. Thank you again to the DPT team, and I wish you a very successful Congress.